Watching a Mickey Loomis press conference is a lot like watching paint dry on a wall. Takes a long time, it's excruciating, and you kind of know what it's going to look like when it's over. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. This press conference was earlier today. I'm actually shooting this at night, which I rarely do unless I'm going live, but I had to watch it a couple of times, as painful as it was, because he talked for almost 40 minutes thereabouts and said a lot without really saying anything. And I was expecting really nothing different. Wasn't surprised about that. But trying to get my takeaways and kind of, or just any takes at all on it was very difficult because it was a lot of circular speak. And as I started to kind of like break it down, and I realized if you move some of his answers around, and this has more to do with the way the questions were coming in and trying to do follow-ups than it necessarily was about anything he was doing naturally, which is really what scared me about the whole thing because it really wasn't a well thought out press conference about what he's trying to accomplish. And I know part of it is just being vague because you don't want to just throw all the secrets out there. That I get. But what we do want as fans, give me something to hang my hat on that things are going to get better. You can't just kind of mumble through and stumble through and give me the impression things are going to stay the same, because things staying the same means they're ultimately going to get worse, because things have been getting worse all throughout the organization. We keep talking about it till we're blue in the face, and that's where it gets annoying and aggravating and frustrating as shit. But that's kind of where we are. So I only have a few minutes that I kind of clip thanks to New Orleans NOF YouTube website. And actually, I was just tired of looking at it. So I just clipped the audio and put a random picture up for him because even that's getting painful to look at. But I just couldn't sit through watching him go through this again. But it kind of strung some questions together to the takeaway is all the things we want, we need: structure, accountability, some change, doing some things better. There's some lip service to it. But when you really kind of dig into his comments, I'm getting the feeling that he really thinks everything is going okay and it's going to be fine. I'm just going to bring in the right new head coach and we're good. And man, I'm severely hope I'm wrong on that take, but I he's not too convincing that things are going to, even if it's not a radical change, just change somewhat, change the direction, change it to where we're going the right way instead of continually going the wrong way.
Rebuild? Is it a restructure? Just kind of where you all are as an organization right now.
Yeah, I think. Look, that's part of what part of what we haven't done yet is really look back and evaluate where we're at from a personnel standpoint. Obviously, this was a tough season, not what we expected. What jumps out is the amount of injuries.
We just can't get away from the injuries. And I get it. It was severe, and I will allow for that. But he's also talking about we really haven't, at this point, done a lot of the evaluation, which I want to call bullshit on that, because I feel like if you guys are doing your job, evaluation's an ongoing thing. I would accept, hey, we haven't finalized our evaluations because, we evaluate our player, our personnel, our rosters as the season goes on. We have that. But we haven't finished. I can't sit here and if you were to ask how to evaluate each player, and hell, they probably just went through all the exit interviews with the players and some information there they're still dealing with. I'm perfectly okay with that. But to kind of drop the statement like, we hadn't even got around to doing, we haven't, really done any evaluations in a while, just is disingenuous. And this is the opening statement of the press conference. I'm like, man, we're pretty much starting off on the wrong foot already.
And we've got to do a deep dive into that. are there things that are preventable? Are there things that we missed in the evaluation process, for example? So all that is work that needs to be done. I'm not a big, I think that you can, rebuild as it means different things to different people. I think that you can turn around a season pretty quickly in the NFL. We've seen it with other teams, and there's a lot of good things on our roster, and there's some things that we need to adjust and fill in. Part of that is going to be the viewpoint, the vision that the new head coach has. So there's a lot of questions there I can't answer.
A little bit to unpack there, right? But the biggest takeaway I got from that is, to him, it sounds like rebuild's a dirty word. And to hear him say it means different things to different people. And I'm like, no, I think to most sane, intelligent people, a rebuild means you're rebuilding. You're not turning around. You're not remodeling. You're not trying to make it look pretty. Rebuilding implies the structure and the foundation is fragile. It's starting to come apart. If you don't address it, you're going to have a collapse. And to not even acknowledge that, because again, I would accept something along the lines of, we think we're still solid. We're continuing our evaluation process, going on what he was just talking about before that. Not, we haven't done it, or we're still, but we're trying to figure out, do we have enough here that we don't have to go through a full rebuild? And then we'll make that determination. And the tack on about the head coach, and this I firmly believe, and I think he makes a good point, the head coach, whoever it's going to be, needs to be a big part of that process. There's only really so much, I acknowledge there's only so much he can do, but whether that's your intent and you worded it incorrectly, or you have no intentions and no plans, because the way you worded it, that's the impression you're leaving me. And it's not the way you want to build confidence in your fan base. I'm sorry. But above all, rebuild is not a dirty word, Mickey. It's okay to acknowledge it. You don't have to commit to it, although I think you should. Hell, maybe that evaluation process and the new coach can come up with a plan when it's going, no, it doesn't need to be a full rebuild, but this is what we need to do. At that point, if that's the plan, then go ahead, do it, get it done, and show me instead of a rebuild, you got a turnaround coming, a turnaround that's going to show some progress.
Do you feel like more change is needed than you even felt, though, 12 months ago? You kind of had a pretty defiant air last year that things weren't that bad, but then obviously after a 5-12.
Well, look, I'm positive.
Now, if we remember this press conference he gave 12 years ago, he was very defiant that things weren't as bad as it seemed, and he said it again in this press conference. It's the only time in this video I'm going to say it, but looking beyond the results, because I am to the point that should be a fireable offense. And he's going to kind of, in a way, go down that road in some of the stuff I'm going to play, and I'm going to be biting my tongue and gnashing my teeth when he does it. But even then, this man does not have the ability to say, a year ago, I truly believed what I was saying, and I'm okay. Even though I don't know for sure he did, I'd be okay if he's going to throw it out there. I would accept it at face value if he followed it up with. But I was wrong. I was overestimating this. I was overestimating that. We made some mistakes evaluating a year ago where we were at. And so when we evaluate now, we've got to do a better job of it so we don't repeat that mistake. Then if you want to throw injuries on the top of it, you could probably sell me on that. Give me some type of reality where we weren't as far along as we thought we were, and then the injuries piled up on top of it and made it impossible. And the two things that we have to do from now, a better evaluation process so we can be more honest about where we truly are right now. And he talks about this later, about evaluating how all these injuries happened and what's preventable and how do we go about preventing to make sure it doesn't happen again. So no matter if our evaluation is good, bad, or ugly, or wherever it falls in between, we're not going to be stacking injuries on top of it, some of which we could have avoided, making our situation worse than it should have been. Fuck, Mickey, is it that hard to just kind of throw that all in there and go, we made some boo-boos. We had some things happen out of our control that made it worse, and we're all still trying to figure out right now, but we're working on it about how to eliminate as much of that as we can while we're bringing in a new head coach who's going to help with this. At this point, if you can make a strong argument, we think it may be a turnaround. But if it's not a turnaround, then we will have to rebuild. And you're still not committing anything to the fans, but dear God, you're giving us hope that you're trying to figure this shit out.
You know, I'm glass half full at all times. I see a lot of things, even in a 5-12 season. I see a lot of things that were positive that we can build on, and so I'm on the side of, man, this thing can go the other direction pretty quickly.
And so
Self-evaluation, right? I don't think we self-evaluate so much as we self-delude. Or we Mickey and others in our front office and within the organization are self-delusional. Optimism and self-delusional are not the same thing. Optimism, glass half full, as he's trying to portray himself, is like we were just talking about, going, look, we made some errors. We made some mistakes. It's okay to tell us for two reasons. One, everybody makes mistakes, Mickey. Two, we're all smart enough to see that you're doing it. So you pretending like they aren't there doesn't change it. Y'all screwed up. Y'all have been. And I don't need a blow by blow of how you're doing it. I just need an acknowledgement, because if you acknowledge it, then you can sell me on. We're making corrections and we're going to fix it. You're not going to see this stuff again. But to sit here and just those statements that he's making, it sounds delusional. It really does. It makes it sound like he doesn't recognize the reality that's right in front of him. And if any part of that is true, hello, another 5-12 season, Mickey, but you can be damn optimism about, hey, we did some good things in it. I'm not denying that you didn't do some good things, but you're denying the fact that you did way more bad things than you did good things.
when you say some of that will have to do with the head coach, obviously when you're interviewing these candidates, if one candidate was like, I would kind of prefer to catch up on the salary cap for a year and maybe, draft some players and build a nucleus. And another one was like, I'd like to try to win 10 games this year with Derek Carr. Yeah. You're open to both ideas at this point, or that may influence which coach you like?
No, I think that one of the things that's really important is to be able to have a collective vision and be on the same page organizationally, ownership, GM, coach.
Stop right there. 100% behind that statement. It has to be that way. I don't think it can work any other way. And look, for all the grief I give him, Mickey's not an idiot. I'm not suggesting he's dumb. I am suggesting is he fools himself that he doesn't accept the reality of the situation. But it's not because he's stupid. I think he just doesn't want to admit it. Is arrogant enough to believe I am right and I'm going to prove everybody right by just keep doing it the same way we've always done it. And he even makes that statement at one point in this, going, well, this is the way we've always done it. Innovation is a real thing, Mickey. But just getting the feeling that we're just getting caught in the same loop over and over again. And I think he kind of gives us the way the structure should be that we can all agree on, but something isn't working the way it should work, Mickey. And That's what we're asking you to do, is find what that is and make the changes you need to make.
Coaches, personnel department, we have to have the same collective vision. Excuse me.
Okay. He said division, then he's like, excuse me, vision. And man, it just wonder if that's a Freudian slip, because for a second there, he put his ego aside and just acknowledged the fact that there is some divisiveness going on in here somewhere that's causing us problems. I may be fooling myself, self-delusional, thinking that's what that was, but there's hope. Maybe there's a glimmer that's starting to seep in his brain a little bit. But like I said, after listening to 40 plus minutes of this, I'm not so sure.
And, we'll get to that. All of these candidates are going to have strengths and weaknesses, and we've got our strengths and weaknesses. And
first time I've ever heard him admit that, hey, we have strengths and weaknesses. I don't know if they're willing to go all the way down and figure out what those weaknesses are and how they can make them better, but we'll see. I do take faith. I think that's the first time I've ever heard him say, and I don't know, 20 plus years. Yeah, we have some weaknesses.
Blind spots, and so we just have to go through that and figure out, and we will, who the best fit is for us. We have strengths and weaknesses, and so,
let me say, this is one when I had to cut and spin around, because this was a follow-up question at a later point, and there was a whole lot of stuff in between.
You have to marry up and be able to compensate for those things. We talked about one right here. I'm maybe overly patient. So, we have to have some people in here that are more, less patient, I guess. Proactive. Let me say proactive as opposed to less patient. I think
proactive would be good, Mickey, because the opposite of proactive isn't patient, it's reactive. Really, two completely different concepts, and both are important concepts. And you can actually be patient and proactive, by the way, and that would be something that I think would be a good combination for somebody in your. Be proactive enough to get out there. If change needs to be made, make the change. That's proactive, not reactive, waiting for somebody else to come in and do your job for you. We saw that happen once, and you weren't happy about it, and you still aren't. You made that abundantly clear in this press conference. But that's reactive. Then I'm going to react to the situation because they fired the coach I didn't want them to fire. Patience is something you do once you have the plan in place. I get it. And you thought you had the plan in place. But being proactive instead of reactive is realizing the plan I thought I had in place is obvious to everyone not working. Let me start making changes. Which scares me because, as I said, he talks in circles and goes round and round. So when you start having this part of the conversation, you start feeling like this whole organizational owner to management to coaching schism that he was just talking about not 10 minutes earlier, 5 minutes earlier, is not the way he wants to do things. But admitting, well, I have a weakness because I may be too patient. I need people around me to be proactive. I'll leave you on this thought, Mickey. Maybe you could just fucking be more proactive. Problem solved. If that's your weakness, do something about it and fix it. It's no different than seeing the weaknesses on the team and, I don't know, being proactive and doing something about it and fixing it. This is where I get aggravated listening to this circle talk. This jerk will keep throwing out there. That makes zero sense to anybody who's paying attention.
main thing that you get from that might be different is, look, we want our coaches to define what they want their players to do at each position, and then it's up to our scouts to go find players that can do those things. The prototypes are the prototypes,
Stop it right there real quick. So what he's basically saying is our It's deeper than this, I know, but just the garden variety quick version of, hey, our coach gives us a shopping list. It's incumbent upon our scouting department to go find those items so we can bring them in and put them on the team. So he's laying this on. The coaches have to identify what they want, and then the scouts have to go identify who they are and get that together. I don't have a problem with that thought concept. And I'm going to say right now, this is little string we're going to go to or taking from different points of the press conference to the point where I don't think he remembered what he said 10 minutes earlier. Because as we kind of run through this string, there's two names about ready to come up, and that's when my blood's going to boil a little bit. But this is all tied together. And kind of going through this, when I realized that part of this was at the 10-minute mark, part of it was at the 20, part of it was a little later on, I start to lose my shit a little bit.
That's just based upon what's playing in the league. But I think what's more important is, what do our coaches, what's their vision for what they want a particular player to do, and making sure our scouts understand that and are looking for players that do those things.
Speaking of front office decisions, how alarming is something like Zach Baun's season? And I know Trey Hendrickson's also first team All-Pro.
Yeah.
If you're like me, this is the point where you're cocking in the air and going, we know mistakes were made when it comes to those two players. And there were others. We can talk about Caden Ellis, we can talk about CD Deuce, whatever. But those are the two right now that are just really, really burning Saints fans up on. You had them in the freaking building and you let them walk. This is where the circle fully starts coming all the way around to the point where once you start piecing it all together, you go, Mickey, what in the hell do you actually believe?
When two things like that happen in the span of a couple of years, how?
Well, look, it's not something that you like, that's for sure. But I understand the circumstances behind it. Look, we tried to sign, Zach Baun, but he was looking for, opportunity to get more playing time. And
we were also way over the salary cap more than we were this year. We struggled to re-sign a lot of players or to keep players, or brought in players on bargain pricing that turned out didn't really help us all that much this year. In a couple instances when we put them on the field, it really, really hurt us. And it was people we were supposedly supposed to be counting on. But I digress.
And under the last, system, that wasn't going to be as likely. So,
okay, now this is when my ass got chapped, because he's saying, well, the coaches tell the scouting department what they want. The scouting department go gets them, bring them to the coaches. Now, in the case of Zach Baun, he's saying, well, he was here, but he wanted more playing time because he wasn't going to get the playing time under the scheme that the coaches were running. So, in effect, what he's saying happened is Dennis Allen, who he didn't want to fire because he said blatantly in this press conference, Dennis Allen's a good head coach. Dennis Allen went to Jeff Ireland, said, hey, Jeff, this is what I need. Jeff said, hey, I found this Baun kid. I'm going to draft him. Here you go. Dennis Allen got him. Well, he didn't fit the scheme. He's not going to play. Becomes a free agent. Despite he appears to be a hell of an athlete, a football player, we don't know what to do with him. We can't guarantee him playing time, which is what the guy wants. Vic Fangio and Philly evidently have been looking at him going, Jesus, that guy can play. Sign him, put him in the middle as a linebacker, all pro, tearing ass. And if you watch the wild card game the other night, there's a considerable force in that Philly defense. So basically, in Mickey's mind, nothing's wrong. In his system, the way they want to do stuff. And yet, he's trying to explain how Zach Baun is no longer on this team. And it doesn't make a damn bit of sense. Got me so aggravated, I forgot which button to hit.
Look, I'm excited that we drafted those players and they've had success. They were identified as talented players, but obviously it's not great when they go and have success someplace else. That hasn't happened a lot.
Define a lot, Mickey. We talking about these two. I'll throw Caden Ellis in there. I'll throw CD Deuce. I haven't pulled out a roster in a draft, and guarantee you there's others. But those two right now are the biggest names because, man, it's scary to think that if Hendrickson stays healthy and stays on the pace he's on right now, this isn't you let an all-pro get out the door to keep a guy who was perpetually hurt in a first-round pick that never helped you once. He could be knocking the door for the Hall of Fame at this level if he can play as many years as Cam has and keep throwing the production out he's throwing. And seriously, a guy went from a special teamer to we couldn't get him on the field to an all freaking pro in the middle of the number 2 seed. And conceivably, Zach Baun could be playing in a Super Bowl this year for Philly. And Mickey, this is the biggest part of bullshit you're throwing around because you cannot say the words, you know what, we made some mistakes.
In our tenure here, but it does happen. And no different than when we get somebody from another team and they have success.
Mickey, when was the last time you got a player from another team that had success in New Orleans for the Saints? You used to be able to do it pretty regularly. I haven't seen it lately. Was it Willie Gay last year? Was it Chase Young? Are we going back further to guys like Marcus May? I'll give you Honey Badger when he first showed up, but Honey Badger didn't have a lot left in him, and we're seeing that now. But honestly, Badger hasn't dropped anything on his new team here like Baun, Hendrickson, Ellis. CD Deuce was dropping numbers like this when he was here, and I don't know, just let's trade him for nothing to Philly. You know, this is the point where you've just talked yourself around in a big circle. Because apparently this is Dennis Allen's fault, and I believe Hendrickson was still Sean Payton. And they didn't know what they were doing because we couldn't keep them and blah blah blah.
Sometimes it's circumstantial, but no.
Sometimes it's because y'all screwed up. It's okay to say it, Mickey. It's okay.
When you draft good players, you want to keep them. Absolutely. If you want to have coaches that have had success,
and I'll let that one play over just a little too long because I'm still aggravated on the Baun Hendrickson conversation. But here's a great one, and this one was very much towards the end of the press conference. And somebody right at the end of this, and I don't know if the clip catches it or not, says, "Oh, we only have 2 or 3 more questions for Mickey." And I think it was a result of this one gets really dumb. I mean, he'd been talking for 30 minutes, so maybe he was just tired and exhausted and getting punch drunk. I don't know, but this one is dumb.
have coaches that have had success, but how are you measuring that? Are you measuring that in wins, or are you measuring it in?
I love that. How are you measuring coaches' success? In wins?
Statistics, development of players. There's lots of different
statistics and developmental players. Well, I don't quite know what he means statistics. Does he just want, hey, we had a quarterback throw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns? My recollection, Drew Brees did that once in the 7-9 season. Yes, there's some success there. But it's a result-driven base. And ultimately, the result that everybody cares about most is how many freaking wins do you have? And if you're throwing up numbers and you're developing players to the point where what Frisco did when they rebuilt, what Detroit appears to be doing now, they're in a rebuild. What Houston did in their rebuild. What Washington, good Lord, in season 1, they at least made it to the wild card round. Got to win in a rebuild. A word you couldn't say earlier, couldn't acknowledge, can't bring yourself to say. But ultimately, all those teams can throw up stats. all those teams could have developed players, but sooner or later, somebody wants them to start winning freaking games. And since it's not happening here, you keep having to dive into the phrase that we won't say anymore that you love to say so much. But this is just another way of saying the same thing.
There's lots of different things to look at when you're looking at all these head coaches. So we're looking at all of it.
So if you were selling this job to a potential candidate, like what would you tell them if they asked why this would be an attractive job? Or?
Yeah, I don't really think we have to do that.
In case you missed the question coming in about basically selling coaches you're interviewing on why this is an attractive job. Now, I wouldn't think we really have to do that. We're the Saints. Obviously, everybody wants to coach the Saints. Look how awesome we are. We don't need to explain it to them or sell it to them. By God, they should just know. That's a dumb and arrogant statement, Mickey.
I guess a better question would be like,
Yeah, we're not recruiting, we're interviewing, you know, and they're interviewing us. So it's a matter of right fit. It's not, I don't think selling is the right, I don't think we need to do that.
He's got to be the only person I've ever heard in the business world, because that's what this is, that doesn't believe an interview process isn't a selling process. That, hey, you don't have to sell anything. Yeah. You're selling what we can do for you, and you're selling what you can do for us. And can we make this work? And I get that's the point he's trying to stress. But I think what he is scared to death of right now is going down a path where he's going to have to explain why this is a really attractive job, which he kind of did early in the press conference, but in an offhanded way, saying, hey, there's only 32 head coaching jobs in the NFL, and we're one of them. So basically, hey, it's just a limited number of space. One of you guys has to take it. And the problem with this is, for me, even if it's just semantics and whether or not you're selling or whatever is going on, you better be selling the idea that when you get the right candidate in here, you are the right fit for him. Because if he is the right candidate, if he is that good, he's going to have other options. And that's what the whole question of how attractive the job is. If I have opportunities, and I can tell you right now, if I was an NFL head coach and it was coming down, I could pretty much pick my job outside of Jacksonville right now, and maybe the Cowboys, because who the shit wants to deal with it with Jerry Jones? I'd probably pick just about anywhere else other than New Orleans for various reasons. But the biggest reason being, there's problems here. And for 40 minutes, you danced around them, you circled around them, you just don't want to admit we really have to get serious because there are problems here. We've got to fix them. We're counting, and you said it. Basically, we're counting on the Harvard head coach to help. Well, I'm one of those head coaches going, really? Do I want to spin my wheels in here trying to fix your problem and getting fired with you in 2 to 3 years if this doesn't work out? Do I want the stigmatism of that? Especially since a lot of these guys are going to be first timers. No, Mickey, you have to do some selling. And if you're not going to do some selling, you seriously scare the crap out of me in thinking you're actually going to get a coach worth a damn. And the most amazing thing is, if you screw this up, I do not see how you can keep your job. You just have enough passive aggressive arrogance about you that makes it just seems like, no, I know what I'm doing. It's going to work. Just quit questioning me about it. While this was going on with the press conference, a few things popped out. Sure, everybody's heard by now. Mike McCarthy is not going back to Dallas. They couldn't reach an agreement. He's basically a free agent coach, already agreed to interview with the Bears, I believe, in the next couple of days. and seems to think he's going to be on the Saints radar, and we're probably going to be looking to bring him in too at some point, probably this weekend. And that's the other part, really, that Albert Breer reported. That sources told him basically the Saints will be bringing in or be interviewing this week. Cliff Kingsbury, Commanders offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, Eagles offensive coordinator, and Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And I guess that's another virtual interview. Not really sure how that comes down, but they're saying that it's Friday and Saturday of this week. So we'll see if that pans out. I haven't heard any confirmation from the normal Saints beat writers on that, but I suspect we'll probably hear something from them in the next day or so. So just keep you abreast of what's going on there. I'm going to have to take a break after this for a couple of days because this was just really a stressful, annoying day dealing with this, but it had to be dealt with. It had to be mentioned. It had to be covered. There's more out there, and I'm sure a lot of you have already seen snatches of it, but, just my take. Again, I can't get away from this conclusion of that he was spinning around in circles for 40-something minutes, and it gives me no great confidence that this organization isn't going to keep spinning around in circles. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. So maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe we will get this turnaround. Maybe it is a turnaround. Maybe he'll find the right head coach. But my confidence level in this, basically from the top down, been shaky at best. Probably, honestly, almost non-existent. None of this today helped. So let me know what you think in the comments. Go ahead. Please give me a like, share, subscribe. If you're new here, definitely please give me subscribe if you like like what you saw and heard. We're going to keep this kind of content going because I think that's just where we are right now, is pointing out you need to do better. And I would like to be the guy that's going to bring hopeful stuff. I was hoping that would happen today, but deep down I knew it wasn't. But we'll see when the head coach hire comes in and subsequent in the 2025 offseason, subsequent stuff may come in and go, okay, they finally starting to figure it out. We've got a shot for, if it's a turnaround, but I'm really thinking it's going to be a rebuild. So anything else breaks, we're going to do a little stuff later in the week, but if not, I'll definitely see you for the podcast live stream on Sunday night. So till the next time I see you, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.